Okay, so I'm Catherine Weber, and I'm the CEO and board member for the Institute for Modern Government, which is part of Willamette University in their business school. The purpose of IMG is to modernize government operations. But first, let me tell you about a couple of successes we've had to give us some credibility. First of all, we got involved with the Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV, and were able to get a bill written and passed that funded a new computer for DMV to replace its 1978 COBOL-based system that it's been using for many, many years. Secondly, we were able to get debit credit cards approved for use in DMV field offices. That rollout has started quite successfully, and Salem has had 2 offices convert. I was out there to renew my license, and the staff were absolutely pleased. The people waiting were pleased. The wait time has been decreased very, very significantly. We also did several other things that will help DMV with their overall management and hopefully make the experience for DMV users a whole lot happier. The other thing that we've had success with was fixing a state system to collect money owed to it. Actually, there was no system, and the state was owed $3.2 billion by taxpayers and by many other people and organizations. That process has been changed. We got funding for about 3 positions to oversee collections. None of it was centralized, it was no standardization, etc. That will take a little bit longer to show an improvement, but everybody involved is reporting that it's going along well and that a target of reducing the increase is well within range. The purpose of IMG is to take a look at the operations of government, not at the policies, not at the implementation of different ideas. Should all birds be required to fly over the Capitol once a year to be counted or something like that, but rather to look at the governance of state government. And the idea of governance is essentially the operations system, so we focus on that and only that. The major challenges that I see are facing government today is number one, we're using a bureaucratic form of governance which came into being in the 1950s and 60s and is just not dysfunctional in today's move to an information age environment. So what we got is an industrial age process trying to solve problems and make decisions in the information age world. Just doesn't work. A little history. Why bureaucracy? Well, back in the early 1900s, there was major corruption in government, and in response, the civil service system was brought up. Inherent in it was a bureaucratic process of, first of all, it's father knows best, top-down information, decision-making, no flow-up of information. Secondly, probably the most pernicious of all of the things was put it in writing so everybody will know what they're responsible for, and so supervisors can also hold all the employees accountable for what they're doing or not doing. The other issue at that time was many, almost all jobs were repetitive jobs. We had clerks typing in repetitively same information over and over for distribution, no information system, etc. And at that time, there was a whole lot of redundant, mass-produced throughput of information. That's simply not true today with the information age tools that we have. Bureaucracy does not work well with complexity, with change, or with individualism. Bureaucratic government, just to summarize, is top-down decision-making, rule-bound, rigid red tape, jobs divided into specialized, basic, repetitive skills, and individuals not highly valued. Most of the time they have been considered the staffing, an input commodity, not someone that brings additional value to the situation. So if you look at it, or when I look at it, I look at this bureaucratic red tape as perhaps the most pernicious of all. Once it gets in writing, it's very, very, very difficult to get it out of writing or to make any changes in it. So new employees come, pick up a procedure manual, a policy manual, and everything from the beginning of time almost is in there. There's no regular sweep through the statutes, sweep through administrative rules, sweep through policy, sweep through procedures, and update them as things and needs change. And one of the other issues is that bureaucracy's most common tool, strategic tool, is linear planning, linear problem solving. Everything is looked at in a linear fashion. You ID the problem, you ID the solution, you set goals, set up service indicators, count the progress, declare victory. It works great with hierarchical decision making and when efficiency is goal, product that you're trying to produce is standard, repetitive, and has a single focus. But 21st century changes have come along. Complexity of problems that the government is asked to deal with has increased dramatically. For example, security, tax structures, wage inequity, unemployment, automation. And there's also been a huge growth in our ability to do analytics. So we've had a real growth in analytic techniques and a demand for analytics staff rather than staff who were doing the redundant kind of work. The information technology is, we're all aware, I think, of what that has added to our lives. Think back to the 1980s before the web was popular and compare how your life has changed today. Some would say for the better, many would say for the worse. Anyway, it's time for what I would call new think. And let me tell you a little bit about how I view this. A long, long time ago, in fact in the late 60s, early 70s, I drove a supply truck in New Guinea up and down the Owen Stanley Mountains, and at that point came to believe that there was more than one truth. When I talked with the people who also were driving truck, they talked about the magic box that I absolutely had to go visit when I was in Port Moresby, which is the capital. And the instruction was you must follow these instructions absolutely to the detail, do not vary. And what you will find is there is a box in Port Moresby which is called the magic box. And the magic box changes men into women, makes people appear, and makes people disappear. Right, I was sure I was going to see that and buy into that. Well, it turned out that was quite a lesson for me. Essentially what it was, as I followed the directions, I went, stood outside the Hotel Stanley, looked in through the window, and saw the magic box, which opened and closed and opened and closed. And in fact, it was the only elevator in the country. It was located in the Hotel Stanley, which was a white-only hotel. And so Native people there looking in saw the magic box. They did not have any context for looking at an elevator. And that, to me, was proof that there is more than one truth in life. And as we move along today, there are many versions of the truth sitting in our political environment, sitting in our the environment that decisions need to get made. Not everybody agrees at what the problem is. Not everybody agrees at what the solution would be. Not everybody agrees how we can get there. It's a value-based, socially complex, and relational dependent kind of an environment, and it's really within the responsibility of one organization. These problems, and I think I initially got attracted to read about them because they're called wicked problems, not because they're nasty in terms of the usual word, but because they are so complicated to solve and such challenging. One good example is the what's called the blacks and the blues today. How do we reconcile the balance or create a balance between the police and the need to maintain some sort of safety versus independence for people's rights? And I think that's a very good example of a wicked problem. So, what do? Well, wicked problems have a solution, and it's based on collaboration, and it's based on the idea that everybody has a voice, every voice is valued and must be listened to. What we did with our collections project, we got everybody we knew that had any interest in collections and invited state employees, a couple of legislators, people from the private sector, banking industry, etc., and opened the project with a y'all come, brought in experts on collections, brought in people who could describe the current state of collections in Oregon and how it operated. And from there, after those descriptions, we moved into a phase 2, which was put everybody in a room and say, okay, what do you think about collections? The rule of the group was, we had people raise their hand and swear, I agree that anybody can repeat anything said here, but you may not source who said it. And it really opened up quite a dialogue for us. And from there, we created different teams that needed to interact with each other. The goal was that these subject teams that came together would identify their problem statement in their area, send it out to all the other teams for comment, and if everybody agreed, it became part of the process. If people disagreed, they couldn't just disagree, they had to send a comment in about what they disagreed. And that was an iterative process. Eventually, what came out of it was Senate Bill 55, which identified and corrected many of the statutes that were dysfunctional in government. It was passed, 3 positions were funded, and we think we're on our way to show that using a wicked problem approach to modernizing government and the need for modernizing government was a valuable kind of thing. So, if anybody is interested in getting involved, we need people to help label and brand the idea. Number 1, government's dysfunction is because they need to be modernized. Number 2, lay out the process for doing that, and we would love to have volunteers and financial resources, etc. If so, please contact us at Willamette. Thank you.